Yo, what's up, guys? Main here. So the Bulls have finally found some buyers. I guess you could say Bitcoin has finally found some buyers. So the question is the bottom in? I don't really know. I made the mistake, as you guys know, trying to catch the bottom earlier. I thought we were definitely going to hang out kind of around this 100K area and have our next leg up. Obviously, we had this larger puke to the downside, and we just nuked through a lot of different levels. So we finally found some buyers here at this kind of weekly breaker. So you have the up candle before the down move. Let me just get rid of this for the moment. Up candle here before the down move, right? Took out these lows. We've now retested this. We also did manage to close just within this weekly fair value gap. So we did wick below it, but the bodies of the candles respected it. And this is probably the most bullish prices looked in a while, really in over a month, pretty much. This is the best chance that we've had, at least for some temporary relief here. So I'm not going to try and call bottom here. We talked about this area in the last video when we were trading in the low 80s, saying, hey, this is an area where price could bounce. And now we're there, and we're seeing a bit of a bounce. The question is, where do we go from here? So high time frame is still very much bearish, right? Outside of the monthly, which is still technically in an uptrend here, right? We are technically within this monthly range here. Here's your low, there's your high. We're within the lower part of this monthly range, so we're still technically bullish on the monthly. However, all of the lower time frames are bearish. Now, if you remember from my stream, I said one of the problems with using the monthly is the monthly was bullish here, and this is where the monthly flipped bearish. And by the time the monthly flipped bearish, we were basically already at the bottom, right? So once we made that lower low on the monthly, we're already at the bottom. And now let's assume you don't even want to use that as your monthly. You want to say, okay, well, this is my monthly swing low, right? Like here's technically the monthly swing low to the monthly swing high. Well, then the bottom formed, within the monthly demand down here. But this is an entire bear market, right? Like you're not going to want to hold for this entire zone. So depending on which one you use, if you say this is the monthly structure or this, either way, we were closer to the bottom by the time that structure effectively flipped. And so as you go on the higher time frame, yes, the market structure levels are more important, right? However, the ranges are that much bigger. And so this monthly structure that we're using right now, I mean, it's from 74K to 124,000. It's what, 70%? You're not going to want to, if you bought here, you don't want to hold saying, well, oh, it's still holding monthly structure. Like it could do this. And if this is an SFP on the monthly, this could be the bottom, but it's like, okay, we've already gone down, 50%. Right? So that's the problem with using the monthly. So in ultimately, the monthly is still bullish, okay? But I'm just gonna make sure these only show up on the monthly here, okay? Monthly is still bullish, okay? That being said, the lower time frames are all bearish. So what do you do? What do you do with this information? Very simple, guys. What we're going to use is say, okay, if the monthly is still bullish here, I need to see the lower time frames get bullish for me to believe that the monthly is going to hold structure, because that's how it works, right? If you want to find a long on the daily higher low here, right? The daily's in an uptrend. What do you do here? You go to the H1, you go to the H4, you maybe even go to the M30, and you look for this time frame to get bullish, right? Because it's going to be in a downtrend. You look for it to flip back bullish and sync back up with this daily time frame here, okay? We're looking for that exactly to happen right now. The monthly is doing this, and we could argue that the monthly is still bullish, and we want to see if the monthly is going to do this, right? Great. Well, I need to see the weekly, the daily, the 3-day, the lower time frames, right? Get bullish to tell me that this monthly is indeed going to put in a higher low. They're going to shift on the low time frame first. And for now, the low time frames are all bearish. So if I go down to the weekly here, right, we're in a downtrend. You could argue this is your weekly uptrend, but I think most people would agree, right? This is your weekly lower low, or this one. We're in a downtrend. So the weekly, ton of work. Not even remotely close to looking bullish here, right? Well, what might show up bullishness first? Well, maybe the daily, the 3-day. If we go all the way down to the daily here, we still don't have a swing low on the daily until here. That is the earliest swing low on the daily, okay? So let's go down to the 12-hour. Here we go. Now we've got something to work with, and conveniently enough, this lines up very nicely with the daily open, or the yearly open, excuse me. So we've got our first attempt here at a higher high, right? Because this is all lower highs, right? Lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. And then the trend is even more aggressive here, right? Like this is just super aggressive downtrend, but it's starting to break. It's trying to flip. And if we go down to the H4, still nothing, right? But down to the H1, I think we've got our first structure break in what feels like forever. We've basically had non-stop lower highs and lower lows. Lower high, 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 lower high. This is the first structure break on the hourly. That's how far down we have to go to find a bullish level, a bullish market structure. Well, the hourly is a start, okay? But now if we want to see the bulls actually prove that they're here, because yes, this is a nice bounce. We got a $10,000 bounce here pretty much, right? It's great. But the hourly is the only time frame that is bullish. Every time frame above it is still bearish. So the assumption is that this is much more likely to just be another lower high, right? Because maybe it's an uptrend on the hourly now, but on the 4-hour, right, which is this swing high, it's just gonna be bang, another lower high. So that to me is gonna be what we're gonna wanna look at if you're a bull here, right? Now you could go to the low time frames here and be trading, right? Like there's some trades here probably, like, you know, you had key level here get flipped. You've got a key level right here that's attempting to hold. You've got this little trend line break. So maybe if it can hold above here, right? Break above this, maybe you get a trade from here to here, right? Sure, I'm not interested in that. I want to see a bigger swing form out play. I'm not interested in scalping here, low time frame. So what I want to look at is like the H4, and I want to say, okay, where's the H4 flip bullish? Okay, because if the H4 can flip bullish, then maybe we can start talking about the daily flipping bullish, right? H4 basically flips bullish above the yearly open. So I think if you're a bull, that's where you want to see us trade above. And for now, I think the bears are still very much in control here. And what we got to be careful of is just kind of maybe this and then just bang, another low, right? So if you're a bull, you really want to see us get above the yearly open. I think that remains a key level. It was an area that I thought would be support. It didn't end up being support. I'm expecting it to be resistance, and this will maintain as a 4-hour downtrend unless it can flip that zone. So first sniffs of a reversal. Again, I don't even want to use the word reversal because it's way too soon, but you know, we broke this little trend line here. We got an hourly higher high. Let's see if we can flip the H4. So that's what I'm watching for the bulls here. Ultimately, if you go back and look at like prior lows here, right? It's not crazy to see this, right? A low form, a grind up, and then bang, another low, right? Like that's not crazy. We could totally be seeing that happen here, right? Maybe it comes out and takes this monthly low out, because generally all of our bottoms have formed with some kind of weekly SFP, right? So we don't have that right now. And if you look back here, weekly SFP, weekly SFP. If you go back to the 25K low, lo and behold, we had a weekly SFP. We even had one there. So if we're going to get a bottom, maybe that's what it will take. It will take one more drive down, right? So we get a couple weeks of relief here, one more drive down, and maybe we reprint something like this. And it runs below this low and it retests, you know, here or something like that, right? I don't know. It's too early to tell. The most bullish outcome here, outside of, yes, obviously reclaiming levels and whatnot, is a super aggressive rally to go into the end of the year. I've told you guys now this a few times, and I was talking about this even here. My belief is that we are due for a rally going into the end of the year. I did not think it would trade off this low, but I thought the result of that rally was going to be one of two things. It was either going to be into a lower high, right? Or new all-time high. Forget the time scale here. But those are I'm of the mindset that 2026 is going to be bearish. But I thought we would have one more leg basically, and when it was here, I think the likelihood of a new all-time high and then the dump was higher, right, than just a little rollover. Now that we've traded all the way down to 80 and the bottom might not even be in yet, I think the likelihood of a new all-time high is greatly reduced. And I think it's much more likely that we get, at best, a lower high, up near the 100K area. And that would be your opportunity to de-risk and to sell. Maybe we don't. Right? I've seen a lot of people looking for this same idea. Oh, I'll just sell the next lower high. Obviously, that's what everyone's saying now. Once we start trading up, if we end up trading at 98, 100, 105, all of a sudden you're going to have people who were saying they would sell the next bounce change their mind and say we're going to all-time high. So trying to gauge sentiment now, to me, it's kind of meaningless. The sentiment from 2 days ago when we were at 80K, drastically different now than we're at 88K. And if we're at 98K, it's going to be drastically different then. So these types of everyone's looking for the same setup, right? I'm telling myself I'll sell a lower high here. When we get there, it's going to be a lot harder to do. That's how it works. But those are kind of the two outcomes that I'm expecting, one of these two. And based on the fact that we've now put in this bear structure on the weekly, I think this outcome, right, is a relief rally and then a rollover is the much more likely of the two. And then we see what 2026 looks like. But still of the belief that we're due for this relief rally. It's just a question of when's that low going to form and how do we get involved? And I explained how we get involved here, right? Let's see us get above the yearly open. Right? We get above the yearly open. I think we open the door to 100K. This is a very nice 10K range that I can play risk adjusted, because the problem with trading right here is, where's your stop? Is your stop below here? And where's your target? Right in here? Like, to me, unless you long this is tricky, right? If we're able to get above the yearly open, right? I can now frame my trade with my risk being below here, right? And my target being into here and maybe even up into here. So I get a nice risk reward and I know where my invalidation is, because that's important. I might like the entry here and say, hey, I think we're going at 100K. I'm going to enter here. Where am I wrong, right? If I'm willing to have my stop below there, great. Why is your stop below there? You need kind of that second part of the idea. The entry is only part of it. You need to know where you're wrong just as much, if not more. So that's the key level that I'm going to be watching there. But for now, again, like I showed you, other than the hourly, and then we're breaking this trend line here, 4 hour up, all in a downtrend. Okay, so the bears are firmly in control. The onus is on the bulls to show up. A few other things that I'm watching here is obviously equities taking out this low into demand here on the 3-day. Does this have more juice for one more leg? I think best case scenario for crypto is this is a low and we have one more high in us, or we maybe push down one more time and then we have one more high in us. Either, like, this is one of these two outcomes. This is the low, or one more low and then we push up. This is what is required at the very least for crypto to get back to like 100K or maybe a new all-time high. Again, all-time high I put on pretty low odds at this point, but anything can happen. We got to see what happens here. Other things to watch that I think are very important. USDT dominance. I posted this in Telegram. Each of our bottoms on crypto occurred with USD dominance coming up to this area and then rejecting, right? So here's our September, October 2024 low. This is 75K, right? This is the 100K low before the last run, and here's 80K. Is this it again? Is this going to roll over? If that happens, maybe we see crypto pump, right? The dollar, of course, we're going to want to watch as well. We've got this kind of range and resistance here right above us. If you take last year's range, actually, right? So this is the range of the prior year. We're trading within that right now. We're like holding right at that level. I think this is pretty key. Reclaim this, I think, up to here and then up to here. Risk off, bad for crypto, bad for stocks. And this is the outcome I believe we're going to see in the dollar in next year. The question is this ready? Is this the low, right? Or do we have one more dump, right? Which would coincide with crypto getting that bounce. One more dump here. and then the rally, okay? Other than that, some like light fundamental stuff. We obviously have the rate cut discussion changing, right? First it was rate cuts guaranteed, then maybe not. Now it's kind of back on the table. We're going to have this conversation around stimmies and QE a lot going into the end of the year. So if there's any sort of fundamental catalyst along with what I've showed you on the chart here that can not just pump crypto but get people to believe that the bottom is in, right? If we start trading up to here and then they're talking rate cuts, stimmies, blah, 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 everyone's going to be back on the bull train, and then maybe we slam it down again. Or rate cuts, stimmies, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, oh my God, we made a new all-time high. We're so fucking back, and then we fucking slam it down. You know, that's kind of what I'm thinking fundamental-wise. But other than that, guys, I just want to get something out for you quick. I'll have a longer video out Wednesday for y'all. I'm still battling YouTube. The Matrix is attacking me, and it's kicking my ass right now. I got a strike on my channel. So that's why I'm uploading this one on X instead of YouTube, because I can't upload for 7 days. So I've removed all the links from the description of my videos. So if you want to support me, go directly to my TraderMain website, and there you can find my ref links, link to the Haven. You want to sign up for Breakout Prop, make sure you use code MAIN for a 2% discount. Yeah, like again, you don't have to use any of that shit. You can just, leave me nice comments and whatnot as always. But if anyone has any contacts on YouTube and can help me figure out what the hell's going on, that'd be awesome, because there's a lot of scammers and dirtbags whose channels are totally fine, and your boy Maine is getting fucking pummeled. So let's see what happens here. Really quickly, I'll cover ETH, and Sol. I talked about this on the stream, but we're seeing Total here hold. Now I do know that Total includes stable coins, right? You can remove stable coins from here if you want. But at the end of the day, to me, this just shows that maybe we see a bit of alt performance if we do get a bounce here on Total and on Bitcoin. And we saw today ETH went up more than Bitcoin, right? They're stronger out of the bottom. So is Solana. ETH is into this kind of high time frame demand. So if we are going to get one more exit pump, right? ETH is technically still bullish on the monthly, similar to Bitcoin. And you want to be looking for the low time frames to flip bullish in here. You got a low, a high. Here's where that was generated from. So within this gray box, if the bulls can show up, it looks pretty interesting, at least for a bounce. Where do I think that bounce can go? Again, yearly open is going to be a key level. And then ultimately the monthly open and that $4,000 ironclad resistance. If we get a really big rally on crypto, like Bitcoin back to 100, maybe we see ETH back to 4K. I know it seems crazy. That's a 30% move, but if Bitcoin can get back to 105, that's 20%, puts ETH around 30%. I don't think that's completely impossible, right? Don't think it's completely impossible for ETH to pump 20-30% if Bitcoin gets back over 100. That's where I'd be looking for, again, a lower high, and then if we get above here, obviously $6,000 to $8,000, but let's deal with that when we get there. Okay. Solana, real quick here, very similar, right? We're in this monthly demand here, but Solana arguably looks a little bit worse because ETH made that higher high on the monthly. Solana did not. But for now, we are technically still within this monthly demand, and we might be closing as a monthly sweep here. You got to go way down to like the 3-day here. But if Sol can get above, this, maybe there's a trade here up in towards 170 to 200, but that's going to require Bitcoin getting back above the yearly open. I think Bitcoin drives the boat. I do think that alts could outperform, be more reflexive, but I still think Bitcoin drives the boat, and that we need to see it find some buyers, have a sustained rally. All right, guys, that's all I got. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.